on the M25 in Kent. The anti-clockwise entry slip roads closed at junction 1 at Dartford after an accident causing delays. It's also a lane closed each way near junction 5 for the M26 again today. Repairs are accused from junction 2 for the A2 and for around 6 miles back along the M26 towards there. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Meghan's launched her new lifestyle range, starting with jams, and it's called American Riviera Orchard. Apparently it's been made from organic fruits grown in Meghan and Harry's Montecito gardens. If we can believe it. I reserve an air of scepticism. But she sent out 50 jars of this jam to influencers and celebrity friends in the hope of trying to boost some sales to her product. But it's ended up winning for King Charles because fans have gone to Highgrove website and King Charles's jam has sold out.
So
sales has gone through the roof.
Why did they go to the Highgrove website?
Well, I think it's a bit of a blow against Meghan because they're saying, we don't want your jam, we're going to go and get the King. So it just shows how popular the King is. This is what she's always wanted. Her dream has been to be like this Gwyneth Paltrow-style lifestyle guru. She's always loved Gwyneth's website, Goop. When she set up the TIG, which was her website when she was still in Suits as a working actress, that was the brand, the style of brand that she was going for, was this Gwyneth style, New York elite, very princessy. So this is her chance now by trying to cash in on her royal title because she is now a duchess, so she's using that to try and elevate her brand. And she's really now trying to carve out herself as this new Martha Stewart.
And she's coming out with a cooking show as well on Netflix. She's coming out with a cooking show. And she's, I mean, to be fair to Meghan, she has always tried to say that she's into healthy eating, organic food, cooking. But I don't see this being a success. It just will not happen for her because she's just burnt too many bridges. People just don't believe in her brand. They don't think she's authentic. So, are you an actress? Are you a guru? Are you a duchess? Are you a philanthropist? Who are you, Meghan?
Who actually are you? This is what we're asking. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think Meghan really knows who she is.
9:30 on Tuesday, the 30th of April. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. So, breaking news as we come on air. A critical incident has been declared in Hainault, North East London, amid reports of several being stabbed at a station, the area's MP, Wes Streeting, has said.
So we'll bring you the latest on that. And don't send them back. The row over returning migrants to the UK from Ireland is gathering pace as the Irish government now announces emergency laws to return the migrants to the UK.
And Scotland's uncertain future. The search is now underway for the next First Minister following Humza Yousaf's dramatic resignation. But what does it mean for the SNP's dream of independence?
And a royal recovery. King Charles to return to public life today as the King, alongside Queen Camilla, will visit a cancer centre, meeting patients and staff.
And migrants missing in the UK. A government report has revealed that the Home Office has lost contact with more than half of migrants that were set for deportation to Rwanda. So that the King's visit.
Great, and it's going to happen right in our lifetime, so stay tuned to us. We're expecting it, in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I think it's fabulous. Interesting, Bev, that he's going to a cancer centre because we know what's happening with Catherine Middleton in his own battle with cancer. Will be supported by Queen Camilla.
And, of course, that breaking news this morning about the stabbings here in the south of England this morning, Hainault area. The footage is pretty dramatic. We're working out at the moment what we can and can't show you of that event. gbnews.com/your say is the message board this morning to let us know all of your thoughts. First, though, the very latest news.
Good morning, it's 9:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. We start with some breaking news. A man has been arrested after a critical incident was declared in North East London, with reports of several being stabbed at a station. Hainault MP Wes Streeting posted on X saying a critical incident had been declared in Hainault and that there are station and road closures in place. The Met Police also confirmed they were at the scene and that a man has been arrested. The government says it's trying to find missing asylum seekers after a report revealed that more than half of the illegal migrants set for deportation to Rwanda cannot be located by the Home Office. According to the figures, just over 2,100 identified for removal can be located out of 5,700 asylum seekers. All had been told their asylum claims were inadmissible, but more than half have now stopped reporting to the Home Office. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins told GB News the Home Office will find them and flights will get off the ground.
We know that the Home Office has identified the first cohort of people that are to be removed to Rwanda now that we've passed the Act. It's important to understand there are different arrangements for different people. So, for example, some people are detained, so others are allowed to live with friends or families, but they should be reporting into the Home Office regularly so that they keep that relationship up. Now, of course, the Home Office will be checking these people and will be finding these people. It is hard grind, but we have passed this piece of legislation this week. That is good news. We know that it will begin to have a deterrent effect, and we will get the first flights off the ground within weeks.
Now, nominations are now open in the SNP leadership contest, and senior figures are backing former Deputy First Minister John Swinney for the top job. It comes after Humza Yousaf stepped down and admitted he underestimated the level of upset he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll continue in his post until a replacement is found. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
Very good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Bev Turner, and Andrew Pearce.
And we've got some breaking news. Several people have been stabbed and injured at an underground station in north-east London on the borders with Essex.
That's right. It happened at Hainault Station. A man has been arrested. Mark White joins us now to give us the latest. Morning, Mark. What do we know? We've got two lots of footage. This is the pictures from outside the station, and there are also pretty shocking images of events around a housing estate that I think is probably a short distance from this station. Do we have any idea how many people have been injured, Mark?
Well, we can confirm at this stage that multiple people have been attacked and injured in this incident. The Metropolitan Police has just confirmed that they received an emergency call just before 7 o'clock this morning to report that a vehicle had been driven into a house in the Thurlow Gardens area near Hainault Tube Station. On arrival, they had reports that multiple people had been stabbed. And in that statement, they say, at this time, we understand the suspect went on to attack other members of the public and two police officers. They say we're awaiting an update on the condition of those who have been injured. A 36-year-old man, they say, has now been arrested in connection with this incident. And we've just had a statement from Deputy Assistant Commissioner Ade Adelakin, who said that this must have been a terrifying incident for those concerned. I know that the wider community will be feeling shock at this and alarm at this time. He goes on to say that people will want to know what happened, and we'll provide more information as soon as we can. He also said, we do not believe there's any ongoing threat to the wider public. We're not looking, they say, for any additional suspects. And importantly, at the end of that statement, he says that they are not treating this as a terrorist incident. However, what is clear is it is a very serious incident, an attack on members of the public and two police officers that happened just before 7 o'clock this morning, when a vehicle was driven into a house in the Thurlow Gardens area. Police were called and told that people at that location had been stabbed. As they arrived on scene, it was clear to the police that multiple other members of the public had been attacked and injured as well. They are confirming that 2 police officers have been attacked and injured. However, at this stage, we just don't know how seriously injured those individuals are, and we await that confirmation from the Metropolitan Police at some time this morning as to the extent of their injuries. But Wes Streeting, a local MP, has also been tweeting this morning saying that he was aware that a critical incident had been declared and that a person had been detained, and he was telling people to follow the police instructions.
Mark, do we know anything more about the person who's been arrested?
All we know is that this is a 36-year-old man who is in custody, and important to add that the police are not looking for any other suspects, so they don't believe there is a wider threat to the public, that threat has been dealt with in the form of a key suspect in custody at this time. And importantly, I think it's worth stressing, they are saying they are not looking at a terrorist motivation for this incident, but as I say, clearly a serious incident. It's having knock-on effects in that area as well. Of course, the area around where the stabbings happened at Thurlow Gardens and near Hainault Tube Station. The tube station itself has been closed down. This is a station that's served by the Central Line. Local bus services into that busy area of East London have also been suspended and rerouted. So a lot of disruption because all 3 emergency services are on scene in very significant numbers, as you would expect in dealing with what is clearly a very serious incident that, at least as far as the police are concerned, has been dealt with in the initial threat stage. That has been dealt with, but of course we're now into what is a much more protracted operation in terms of trying to establish exactly what happened, making sure that all those that were injured will have been taken to hospital and are receiving the appropriate care.
OK, all right, thank you,
I'm just
Mark.
going to say, do we know how, if any of them are seriously injured, Mark? Do we know much about the condition of the people who were stabbed?
Well, the Metropolitan Police say they are working on that. As you can understand, we're still in the early stages of this incident, Andrew. They have confirmed, as I say, that multiple people, both members of the public, it seems, at the scene where that car collided with that house in Thurlow Gardens in that area. But then it appears that this individual went on to attack other people, including, as I say, 2 police officers. So obviously a great deal of concern because I should add some of the detail that the Metropolitan Police have confirmed that this suspect was wielding a sword, and it's believed that it was a sword that was used to attack those members of the public and indeed the police. And that video that you alluded to, Bev, that we've seen as well, does show a man carrying what is clearly a long-bladed weapon in and amongst the houses in that area.
It's and as we say, we in these situations, it's very sensitive in terms of what we should or should not show you, what we can and can't show you. But just to give you an idea, it's a white male, as we've heard, 36 years old. He's wearing a yellow hooded jumper, and he has, as Mark described, a very, very long sword. And he's in a housing estate, knocking on doors, crouching down under windows, mopping his brow. He's clearly agitated. Yeah. And there's one really shocking scene of a paramedic wanting to get to somebody that's lay on the floor with the attacker stood nearby, and the paramedic bravely edging forward to try and get to the individual on the ground. But as we say, at the moment, obviously, it's a developing story. Somebody has been arrested, and we will bring you any more as we know it.
And thank the Lord for that someone's been arrested.
Right, thanks so much, Mark. Now, moving on to another topic, the row over returning migrants to the UK from Ireland is gathering pace.
I think it's ironic, this. Last week, we saw, of course, violent protests in Ireland against the rising number of asylum seekers who are crossing the border from Northern Ireland into Southern Ireland because they say they don't want to go to Rwanda.
That's right. The Irish government has announced emergency laws to return them to the UK, saying the increasing numbers were, of course, down to the Rwanda plan. The UK government has said it won't accept any returns until the EU-wide asylum rules are changed.
Well, GB News Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie joins us now. Doogie, there's a huge irony here, isn't there? Because the great fuss that was made by the south of Ireland about not having a militarised border of any form between north and south after we left because of Brexit, which is why now, of course, these migrants can simply cross from north to south and stay there. So they're almost hoist by their own petard in these Southern Ireland politicians.
Yeah, it is a total. You've hit it in the head. It's a total lack of political foresight here. I mean, I was in Brussels in 2017 when those negotiations were going on, and Leo Varadkar quite clearly said not one camera on the border, and he wasn't being offered a militarised border. He was being offered an electronic border, a smart border. He told the waiting press that this was unicorn thinking and it wouldn't happen. Now, who would have thought all these years on that, of course, the Rwanda bill would come in and immigrants that are awaiting to get placement in the UK would then decide to go into the Republic of Ireland, because, of course, the Republic of Ireland's courts have ruled that the Rwanda bill is not legal, it's not right, and they then say that the UK is no longer a safe place for immigrants. And Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister, last Friday, said in an Oireachtas committee when she was questioned how many of these people were coming from Northern Ireland, and without any facts or figures, she chirped up and said about 80%, which of course caused a huge political row. So they're going to debate this today, and that'll be around legislation on Rwanda and the Common Travel Area, which would have to go through the Dáil, the Parliament in the Republic of Ireland, and of course Sinn Féin are the biggest party in the Republic of Ireland. And they have already called the Rwanda bill a horrendous bill. So in order to put them back into the UK, they would then have to drop that statement and rule that Rwanda was a safe place to be. Meanwhile, the border here is, people are leaving, there's no doubt, but it is not in the scale that they're saying. For the last 2 years that I've been with GB News, I have been in the Republic of Ireland on many occasions. I have seen these tented villages. I have also been with the people of the inner cities of Dublin who were protesting for 2 years about the amount of social housing that was going straight to immigrants. And that really comes because across the UK and Ireland, not only do we have a common travel area, but we have a non-contributory welfare state. That means immigrants will automatically aim for the UK or Ireland because you don't have to pay into the welfare state in order to get the benefits out of it, including health. And that is what is attracting immigrants to the UK and Ireland. And the common travel area that exists, of course, is encouraging them to go across this open border that the Republic of Ireland asked for. And meantime, and this is the big thing this week, at Newtown Mount Kennedy, which is a very beautiful area of Ireland. I mean, Ireland is a very modern country, its people are very liberal, and an asylum centre was being set up in Newtown Mount Kennedy in amongst a very quiet community, and they protested against it, and the Garda Síochána, the police force for the Republic of Ireland, opened up on those protesters with pepper spray and riot squads, and that has really sparked this to the top of the news agenda in the Republic of Ireland.
OK, all right, thank you, Doogie Beattie there.
And the Irish government can pass whatever legislation it wants. The British government are going to say they're not coming back because France won't take back the ones they send across the Channel. EU countries will not take them back, so why should we?
What a mess.
I think it's fantastic.
An emotional Humza Yousaf says he's quitting to help. Yeah, anyway, don't go anywhere. GB News, Britain's Newsroom.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Squatters in London have taken over a pub which is leased by Gordon Ramsay, no less. The pub is currently up for sale with a guide price of £30 million. It is understood that Kitchen Nightmares host Ramsay called the police on Wednesday but was unable to have the squatters removed. The Metropolitan Police said in a statement they were made aware of squatters at a disused property but added, "This is a civil matter," and so police did not attend the property. Let's see what my panel make of this. Why can't we just boot squatters out? If we own a property or lease a property, why don't we just boot them out?
I know that's tempting, but the fact is, long-term empty properties have increased by 24% in the last 6 years. There's 1.2 million people on the social housing lists. People don't have a place to live.
What it does highlight is the enormous disparity in fairness in property laws in this country. It's just not fair that if you've worked all your life and invested some money in property because, you know, interest rates at zero and there's nowhere else to invest your money, and then suddenly somebody who's got no claim to that property and doesn't seem to have earned very much in life takes over your property. It's an outrage.
People shouldn't be squatting in other people's homes or commercial properties. But the fact is, until we sort the housing problem in this country, none of this is going to go away. The fact is, people my age won't be able to buy a home unless they've got a bung from their parents.
Yeah, but what's the practicality of this demonstration?
It's not a demonstration.
It's not going to free up more housing for people who are on the streets.
No, of course not. It's people looking to find a place to live. I don't think it's a demonstration at all.
It's an anti-wealth, anti-property owning demonstration by people who've got nothing better to do in life than break into other people's property.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Keep your messages coming this morning, gbnews.com/your say.
Well, they've got a big race now to replace Humza Yousaf as the First Minister of Scotland, who barely lasted a year in power.
He admitted that he underestimated the level of upset.
Idiot.
That's quite an underestimation in itself, isn't it?
Didn't know they'd be upset when I sacked them publicly at 7 in the morning.
After the SNP leader had avoided 2 no-confidence votes after controversially breaking the party's power-sharing deal with the Scottish Greens. That's the bit that was amazing, that he thought, I can just pull out of all the Green stuff with the Greens and they're going to be OK about it.
And then he said, I didn't know I was going to upset them that much.
The clue is in the name. They are the Greens.
So let's talk to Kevin Marr, who's a former... Kevin, are you there? Former Labour advisor Kevin Marr. Kevin, good morning to you. No, in fact, we've got Stuart... sorry about this. We've got... that looks like Stuart Crawford to me.
That is Stuart Crawford. Let's talk to Stuart. Political commentator and former SNP member Stuart Crawford. Hello, Stuart.
I'm not Kevin.
Yeah, you look like Stuart.
Stuart...
well... Go on, Stuart.
Isn't Yousaf, didn't he go because he was completely out of his depth? And isn't the problem now, how can they get someone, Stuart, to fix it? Because they're going to have to do a deal with the Greens, who are obsessed by all this ridiculous identity politics and gender changing, which will make it very difficult for the SNP to do a deal with anybody, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that Humza Yousaf should never have been in the job in the first place, and he was only... put there, elevated into that position because whoever is behind the SNP's agenda and wanted to continue the legacy of Nicola Sturgeon, although in retrospect that may have been a bit of a false move. But Hans of Yusuf, he never looked like he was his own man, and he always looked as if he was delivering someone else's agenda. And of course, that's always much more difficult if you don't really believe in some of the stuff you're doing. His sacking of the Greens from his cabinet was catastrophic, and he just obviously hadn't thought through the second and third order implications of what he was doing. But that's typical of the SNP administration. They never quite realise what's going to happen down the line.
But Stuart, it's extraordinary because I'm told that when he announced he was getting rid of them, fellow cabinet members banged their fists on the table in warm approval. Did nobody work out that if you get rid of 6 or 7 members of your coalition, you might not have the numbers to govern?
Well, I mean, excuse me, they're not stupid to that extent. And they must have known that this sort of thing would happen. But obviously they underestimated the reaction from the Greens. What they're now trying to do is SNP is now trying to stay in power, which is why Hamza Yusuf has not resigned. He's just indicated that he will resign, which is he's likely therefore to avoid the vote of no confidence in him personally because he's going anyway. But they're not going to be able to avoid the vote of no confidence tabled by the Labour Party in the Scottish Government as a whole. So he's still got that hurdle to overcome. And the whole thing's a mess. And the truth is that the SNP talent pool is actually more like a post-April shower puddle. And there are only 2 contenders, as you probably know, or 2 realistic ones, John Swinney and Kate Forbes. John Swinney was described to me this morning as yesterday's man for yesterday's party, which I thought was very apposite. And Kate Forbes, because of her socially conservative views, doesn't have the depth of support that she would need to have a majority in the Scottish Parliament.
OK. Thank you so much, Stuart, political commentator, former SNP member Stuart Crawford there. Right,
who's
keep your
definitely
messages.
not a former Labour advisor.
Keep your messages coming in, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. And my name is Bev Turner. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Sunny in the east today, but cloudy and breezy in the west with showery outbreaks of rain. The rain persistent first thing across Northern Ireland into parts of southwest Scotland, West Wales and the southwest of England. Some heavy bursts, and as the morning continues, that rain doesn't move along very quickly, so it will stay damp across western areas, but the rain will tend to fragment into showers across parts of Northern Ireland, West Wales and Cornwall later on. Meanwhile, it stays sunny out towards the east, 1 or 2 showers in the far east, but otherwise with the sunshine and lighter winds here, 18 or 19 Celsius, a very pleasant spring day. In the west, the rain continues through the evening, but it does eventually fizzle away and, well, it's going to become less windy as well. But further east, that's where the next band of rain moves in, and a lot of low cloud associated with it as well. So with a lot of cloud across the UK overnight and a bit of a breeze, temperatures will stay at 11 or so in places. Now, we'll start off the day tomorrow with a lot of low cloud across eastern Scotland and eastern England, some mist and murk, fret and har, and outbreaks of rain also moving up the North Sea coast. To the west, any early rain disappears. Brighter skies emerge, some decent sunny spells for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, and feeling warmer compared with today, many places in the mid to high teens.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come this morning, thousands of migrants bound for deportation to Rwanda are missing.
Of course
so
they
are the government's Rwanda plans in crisis? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, the People's Channel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, John Reed Road in South Shields is blocked westbound by an accident causing queues. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound. There's a an accident at junction 3 west of Blackburn, queues towards there. On the M56 in Greater Manchester, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed westbound after an accident between junction 6 and 7 from Hale to Bowden, queues from junction 3A at Bagley. West Midlands Metro services aren't running between Edgbaston and Centenary Square, where a bus has broken down on the tracks. In Herefordshire, the A40 is closed southbound from Whitchurch to Monmouth after a lorry caught fire overnight. And on the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed each way again today for emergency repairs near junction 5. For the M26, there are queues from junction 4 at Orpington and for around 6 miles back along the M26 towards the M25. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh, dear.
Oh, my God. Are you joking?
You're joking. Really? Seriously? It's not a wine. What is it?
Oh, my God. This is amazing. Thank you.
The next winning call could be answered by you. For a chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections, we'll take you through the night as the first results come in.
And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis. And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
It's 10 o'clock on, what date is it? Tuesday the 30th of April. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce.
Breaking news. A critical incident has been declared in Hainault in North East London amid reports of several being stabbed at a station, including police officers. The area's MP, Wes Streeting, has been tweeting about it.
And migrants gone missing. A government report has revealed that the Home Office has lost contact with more than half of migrants that were set for deportation to Rwanda.
A big statement here. The National Health Service is saying that sex is a biological fact in changes that will see trans women banned from female wards.
And a happy story, a royal recovery. King Charles is to return to public life this morning. The King will be alongside the Queen at a cancer centre that's going to be live during our show. Don't go anywhere.
And that breaking news, the 36-year-old man has been arrested. We've seen footage of somebody brandishing a very, very, very long sword, and reports that 2 police officers have been injured. So that's pretty serious stuff going on down there in Hainault in Essex.
Keep your messages coming this morning, gbnews.com/your say. First, though, the very latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, thank you. Good morning. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Police say a man with a sword has been arrested after several people were stabbed in North East London. The Met Police says officers were called just after 7 this morning after reports of a vehicle being driven into a house. Police say the attacker then stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. The 36-year-old man was arrested at the scene and he is in custody. Police do not believe the attack is terror-related. The government says it's trying to find missing asylum seekers after a report revealed that more than half of the illegal migrants set for deportation to Rwanda cannot be located by the Home Office. According to the figures, just over 2,100 identified for removal can be located out of the 5,700 asylum seekers. All had been told their asylum claims were inadmissible, but more than half have now stopped reporting to the Home Office. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins says she told GB News the Home Office will find them and flights will get off the ground.
We know that the Home Office has identified the first cohort of people that are to be removed to Rwanda now that we've passed the Act. It's important to understand there are different arrangements for different people. So, for example, some people are detained, others are allowed to live with friends or families, but they should be reporting into the Home Office regularly so that they keep that relationship up. Now, of course, the Home Office will be checking these people and will be finding these people. It is hard grind, but we have passed this piece of legislation this week. That is good news. We know that it will begin to have a deterrent effect, and we will get the first flights off the ground within weeks.
Meanwhile, Ireland's Department of Justice is standing by claims that 80% of asylum seekers are coming into the country through Northern Ireland. It comes after refugee organisations questioned that figure released by the country's Minister for Justice. Ireland's Deputy Premier, Michael Martin, had said it was not based on evidence, statistics or data. However, Britain's Northern Ireland Minister said the UK's new Rwanda deterrent is clearly working. Nominations are now open in the SNP leadership contest, and senior figures are backing former Deputy First Minister John Swinney for the top job. It comes after Humza Yousaf stepped down and admitted he underestimated the level of upset he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll continue in his post until a replacement is found. Meanwhile, former MSP for South Scotland region, Michelle Ballantyne, questioned John Swinney's authenticity.
Are we getting the true John Swinney? Was John Swinney merely playing whatever game was in front of him to keep his position in the party? And I think there's a few people would be uncertain now. And I think if he does pull through and become leader again, because this won't be the first time, remember, he was leader once before and it wasn't a great success. And he's been interim leader before. But if he does come, this maybe is a chance for him to say, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. And we might see the true John Swinney in terms of what he believes in.
In other news, hospital patients in England will have the right to request to be treated on single-sex wards under proposed NHS changes, with transgender people placed in rooms on their own. The measure is part of plans by the government to update the NHS constitution. The proposals stress the importance of biological sex for the first time when it comes to same-sex accommodation and intimate care. Currently, the rights are only available where that's possible, and in the case of same-sex wards, can be breached if there is clinical urgency. Police investigating the discovery of a headless torso at Kersaldale have named the victim after more body parts were found. 67-year-old Stuart Everett's severed body parts were scattered in 4 different locations across Greater Manchester. It comes after 2 men appeared in court charged with his murder. And King Charles will return to official public duties later today for the first time since being diagnosed with cancer. He will visit a cancer treatment centre alongside the Queen to meet medical specialists and other patients. The monarch has been receiving care as an outpatient since early February, and it's understood the warmer weather would allow events to be staged outside and lessen the risk posed by other people. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
10 o'clock, you're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So breaking news this morning, several people have been stabbed at Hainault Underground Station in North East London.
Police say the attacker stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. A 36-year-old man has been arrested at the scene, is in custody. Our Home Security editor Mark White joins us now to give us the latest. Mark, this sounds incredibly serious.
Yes, indeed. It happened just before 7 o'clock this morning. The Metropolitan Police said they received a 999 call reporting that a car had been driven into a house in the Thurlow Gardens area, not far from Hainault Tube Station. That report also suggested that people had been stabbed at that scene. Now, the police said that when they arrived on the scene, they were then aware that other members of the public were attacked and injured by this suspect, including, they say, 2 police officers. They are waiting at the moment for updates from the hospital on the conditions of those who were injured. But we know, according to the Metropolitan Police, and indeed there is video that is circulating, we're waiting to get that video out to you once we've just blurred the image of the alleged attacker. Now that this case is active, we have to be careful with what exactly we show. But that does show an individual carrying a long-bladed weapon. It appears to be a sword, which is indeed what the Metropolitan Police said the attacker was armed with in this incident this morning. Now, it happened not far from Hainault Tube Station, a station served by the Central Line. That station, as you would imagine, is closed. Severe disruption in the area, as well as to bus services and traffic going through this busy area of East London.
Mark, when you hear terrible things like this, people instantly think, rightly or wrongly, is it terror-related? The police advice is that's not the case.
Yes, police were very quick to say that this is not an incident that they are treating as a terrorist incident. They also believe that there is not a wider threat to the public. They are not looking for any other individuals other than the alleged attacker, who is a 36-year-old man in custody at this stage. I should say we just had a statement from the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who says, "I'm absolutely devastated by the news from Hainault this morning." He goes on to say, "I remain in constant contact with the Commissioner and a man has been arrested and the area secured. The police are not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident." They said that there will be additional police patrols in the area as a reassurance measure. You always see that after these very serious incidents where police will add extra reassurance patrols in an area. He said that the police officers and emergency services showed the best of our city running towards danger to protect others, and he said that he thanked them and indeed members of the public with the bottom of his heart. So that's a statement from the London Mayor Sadiq Khan.
OK, thank you, Mark. We've got another statement here. This is from the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Ade Lakan, who released a statement. "This must have been a terrifying incident for those concerned. I know the wider community will be feeling shock and alarm. People will want to know what has happened, and we will provide more information as soon as we can. We do not believe there is any ongoing threat to the wider community. We are not looking for more suspects. This incident does not appear, as Mark said, to be terror-related."
Can't imagine it, can you? You're going to work, 7 o'clock, a lot of people going to the tube station to go into central London, on Hainault.
Kids waking up to go to school?
Yeah, absolutely. On their bikes, people on the paper around. And suddenly, this happened. A car driven into a house at speed, and then a sword-wielding... It's appalling. And you always think it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen in our area.
Residential area.
Yeah.
There's footage, it seems, from 2 sites, which is the tube station that we've been showing you, and then also at a housing estate. And it looks like the perpetrator is going from door to door with a very, very long sword. Not a knife, it's clearly a sword. There's one shot which shows a paramedic standing over a body that isn't moving on the floor. We don't know the condition of that person, and edging towards to try and give medical assistance whilst the attacker is stood nearby. I mean, just remarkable bravery from that paramedic.
And it reminds you, doesn't it? We often criticise the police as well, don't we? Because they screw up sometimes, but we forget, we should never overlook that day in, day out, every hour of every day, they're doing an extraordinary job and putting their lives at risk. And we've seen 2 police officers have been injured in this attack. We don't know their condition yet, and we'll find out as the news comes our way.
That's right, and we're hoping to talk to an eyewitness at just a moment. But as we say, a man has been arrested. It just feels like, Andrew, doesn't it? So many times we are talking about knife attacks.
On air?
On air.
It happens.
Live, breaking news.
Well, if you remember the shocking ones in Nottingham where the teenagers were murdered, was while we were on air.
And in fact, that story is on the front page of the papers this morning because Grace O'Malley, of course, she was the beautiful, young, successful, accomplished young woman who lost her life on that day. And her parents are supporting a campaign to give a George Cross posthumously for this girl. Now,
she, of course, went in to help him, and she was stabbed 23 times.
That's right.
She could have run, but she intervened to protect her friend, and it was a frenzied attack against her then, which lasted 30 seconds. She was stabbed 23 times and, of course, lost her life. It would be some small comfort, you might argue, to give her the George Cross. It's the highest military... It's the highest civilian bravery award.
I don't think
is it appropriate?
I personally don't think in the case of the beautiful loss of Grace O'Malley, I don't think that the George Cross would be appropriate under these circumstances. I think there should be possibly some other sort of posthumous award. But she obviously behaved in a way that was brave and defending her friend Barnaby at the time.
She loved her friend.
But I think that is a very different act of impulsive bravery compared to somebody that we've seen that the London Bridge terror attack. I don't believe that those people who reprehended that man on that occasion, they didn't get it.
And if you go back to the 1970s, I think we talked to him on this programme, Princess Anne's bodyguard, who took a number of bullets for the princess, who was, when there was an attempted kidnapping in the Mall. They dragged open the car door. And, of course, you shouldn't forget, Bev, the NHS got a George Cross. After COVID. And the island of Malta got the George Cross from George VI because of the 3-year siege where they were nearly starved into submission by the Germans. And the King said, and actually, when I was in Malta a few weeks ago, they're very proud of that George Cross. Very proud of it. And there's a little museum, and the note from the King is there. But the point Bev's making is knife crime. So much of it, it seems to happen so often. I can remember talking to the Chief Constable of Liverpool many years ago when I was on the Daily Telegraph, and he had those scanners which you have at an airport outside some schools and nightclubs, because knife crime is becoming such a problem.
Well, it is. There's quite a few schools now in London that have scanning machines, metal detectors outside of schools. What have we done? Right, still to come this morning, only 1/10 of schools have banned mobile phones despite government pressure. But should parents back the Prime Minister's crackdown on social media use for the under-16s? Yes.
Well, particularly when you consider the story on the front page of the Mail today. What does it say? All schools warned. All schools have been warned by the National Crime Agency. They've warned every primary school and secondary school teacher in Britain that children as young as 5 are at risk of being blackmailed with intimate pictures online. How are 5-year-olds getting caught up in this web? And these gangs are operating in Asia and Africa, so they're beyond the reach of the police. And that's making it, should these kids have access to the internet on their phones? Why does a 5-year-old need to be able to look at images on his or her phone? Why can't they just have a phone where they can ring mum or dad?
Well, at 5 you don't really need to ring mum or dad.
You're
not even stood at the bus stop. You shouldn't have a mobile phone at 5 years old, in my opinion, full stop. And I don't think many do at 5. Well, I think the statistics actually is quite...
I think it's going
quite
up.
a high proportion now. But this sextortion epidemic, as the Mail have called it, there have been teenage boys particularly who've taken their own lives over this. They've been conned into passing over naked pictures of themselves to somebody online who's pretending to be a girl maybe, or pretending to be another young man, and then the people who've got those images then threaten to release those images to family and friends unless they pay them money. And in some instances those poor teens have taken their own lives.
And you might think, how could the kids be so silly? But they are children. That's what they are at 16. And remember, just a few weeks ago, a Conservative MP had the whip removed because he was sharing intimate photographs of his body with a complete stranger he met on a gay dating website. So, I mean, no wonder kids are getting caught up in it.
Absolutely. Right, keep your messages coming this morning, gbnews.com/your say. Don't go anywhere. Quick break. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Patrick Christies. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christies tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Leading motoring organisation has called for all new drivers to be banned from giving lifts to friends for 6 whole months after passing their tests.
Yes, the AA says around 5,000 people every year are killed and seriously injured in crashes involving at least one young motorist. Graduated driving licences introduced with limitations imposed on a period of time after a driver passes their test. So a two-tier system.
Well, is this sensible or yet more ageism when it comes to regulating our habits in the United Kingdom? Let's speak to Quentin Wilson, a motoring journalist and transport campaigner. Really interested to get your thoughts on this, Quentin. There are a lot of people who instinctively will say this is state overreach. This is telling adults that they can't do something that they've done for generations. What's your view?
Well, look, the recent accident with the convertible Mini where people were twerking in the back, this is due to driver education. The person in control of that car really should have told the passengers just to buckle up and stay still. We're not teaching kids to drive properly. We expect them to do all this stuff below the dashboard, grinding of gears, hazard perception, positioning of car, in this very, very small time window, when we should be doing it from school age, teaching hazard perception. So I've been a patron of an organisation called Young Driver, who's delivered 1.4 million lessons to 11 to 17-year-olds on private land with ADI qualified instructors with dual controls. And the accident rate for that group is 4%. The national average is 20%. So look, we can do this, we can reduce these fatalities if we teach kids earlier about road safety.
Is this an issue, frankly, with teenage boys and showing off?
The testosterone does always seem to come through, doesn't it?
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The
People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10:19. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Ten. We've got our panel here, senior political editor Nigel Nelson and the Conservative peer Lord Corbett Ranger. I want to talk to you chaps. This is terrible, but what's happened to Hainault. We're especially concerned. Well, 4 people we know are injured, including 2 police officers, Nigel.
Yes, I mean, the one thing we also know, it's not terrorism.
Yes.
Which is always the fear in situations like this. But once again, we have in London a really brutal knife crime. In this case, it seems to be, from what we can gather, a sword crime. But either way, I mean, it's the kind of thing that we've been beset with in London constantly. Yeah. I'm not sure what you do about it. I mean, it's not like guns where you can crack down on them if you haven't got an access to say it is a sword, you would have access to a variety of other bladed weapons. And so I don't think that... I think that the culture has to change rather than dealing with the things themselves.
Cover, just looking at the figures for last year, the number of knife or sharp instrument offences, this is from the House of Commons Library, recorded by the police in London rose to 12,786 2022-2023, compared with just over 11,000 the previous year. 13,000 knife and sharp instrument offences. That's astonishing.
Andrew, it's shocking. And look, I don't want to politicise this. This incident has just happened.
It's over 1,000 a month.
Yeah, and my thoughts are with whoever's been injured and obviously the officers involved. But I have to disagree with Nigel on this. There is things you can do. There needs to be strong leadership from the mayor, giving direction to the Metropolitan Police on knife crime. And I say this as someone who was in an administration that faced an epidemic in knife crime in 2008 when Boris Johnson became Mayor of London. And we set up specific targeted operations led by the Metropolitan Police to focus on cracking down on knife crime, enabling people to hand in their weapons, more education. There was an issue amongst young people, with boys in schools. There are many different ways you can do it, but you have to have the focus. And those numbers show a trend, Andrew, that has been going up and up in London. And that's why the current mayoral candidate from the Tory party, Susan Hall, is so vocal about the issue of policing and cracking down on these issues if she becomes mayor.
It's still cool, isn't it, Nigel, it appears, for some young men in our inner cities to have a blade, a knife.
Yeah, yes, and a lot of them...
And they're part of the gang culture.
Part of the gang
and we've
culture.
got to somehow wean them off the idea it's cool. If you're caught with one, you should be locked up.
Well, I mean, whether or not... I mean, the sentences are quite steep at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate it sort of, 3 times or whatever.
Yeah.
Some of these people say they're carrying it for self-defence. I think that Culvey's point of education is absolutely right. There are a number of sort of charities like St Giles Trust, and what they do is that they... have an awful lot of former gang members in there who actually go to the bedside of the hospital of someone who's been stabbed.
Right.
And then tell them how they can wean themselves off the gangs. Now, all of that's a bit late, because obviously in a sense that someone has actually been attacked by that stage. But that's the kind of education thing going on, where you've got kids who have been on the wrong end of knife crime, but have been in gangs, but have been carrying a knife, and they're then told how they can help themselves.
What comes out time and time again when you listen to perpetrators or victims of knife crime is how frightened they are just with daily life, just going about their business, whether that's going to school or going to sign on or whatever it is that they do with their day. They're frightened of other gang members, so they carry a knife to protect themselves.
It's a vicious circle, isn't it?
And they say... I heard someone being interviewed the other day who was a perpetrator of knife crime, and he said, I wanted to go into prison because I felt I'd be safer in prison than I would waking up every day on the street of London in which I lived.
It's shocking to hear that. And again, you have to start early on this. We faced a challenge. I don't want to keep going to 2008, but there was a wonderful man who recently passed away, Ray Lewis. In fact, I'll be going to his memorial service next week. He had done so much work with young men, young black men, who needed role models to stay away from the gang culture, to not get involved in that knife crime world, that machos men, the fear. And there are things like this that you need to do, and you need, the mayor needs to do, the Metropolitan Police need to do to get involved early.
If you're an 18-year-old and you're involved in knife crime now, you were 5 when this Conservative government came to power.
Yeah. Oh, no, look, it's an ongoing thing.
What responsibility do the Conservative administration take for the state of our teenagers?
I think there's an issue about London, and then there's an issue nationally. I think London is an outlier in a lot of these issues. And we could talk, because this issue has happened in London, although we don't know the details about this. But we do need to have more role models. We do need to start earlier to helping avoid the case of the gangs, avoid the fear culture, avoid the spread in society that says, I feel scared to walk down the street. It's a role for the Metropolitan Police. Yes, it's a role for our politicians. And it's a role for those community leaders as well.
And the schools as well.
But also, wasn't there a mistake, Colby, just for closing down youth clubs?
Absolutely.
Wasn't that a problem?
Sports centres,
we have to
youth
children,
clubs, swimming pools,
playing fields,
people.
Give them
somewhere to go.
Get them away from the digital world as well.
Yeah.
Get them out there.
Give them something to do after school instead of hanging around in a gang.
That's right.
And then getting sucked into knives and drug crime.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the county lines, you know, the emergence of young people being used as mules in those drug environments, this is all linked together, and we must focus on it.
All right.
We should talk about it segues into this extraordinary story on the front of the Sun, Nigel. Lovely Grace O'Malley Kumar, who was killed by the Nottingham fanatic.
Here we go, outside London.
Outside London,
which is
yeah.
important, yeah.
She went to his aid. As you know, she tragically died too. The Sun is launching a campaign, said she should get the George Cross. She's 19.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. That at 19, that she was an England under-18 hockey player. She had everything to live for. The police themselves say she fought and fought and fought to save her friend Barnaby Webber and failed. But it sounds like, on the face of it, she qualifies for a George Cross. I mean, the highest civilian award for bravery. It's in Rishi Sunak's court to now recommend it.
What do you think? Is it appropriate?
I think it is. Also, coming back to the point of role models, it's very important that sometimes we hold up young people who give a sacrifice like this. She gave her life, you know, defending that Grace O'Malley Kumar. That recognition is not just for her. It will obviously help her family, but it helps show young people the kind of person you can be, the kind of behaviour you can have, the kind of way to act in this situation.
When I was reading about today, the terror those kids must have gone through before they died, the terror and the horror for their parents.
Yes.
They must relive this every day.
I don't know how a parent gets over this.
No, I don't
I mean,
think
Grace's
they do.
parents say that there's a very strange feeling that they're obviously they would like her to have just run away.
Yes.
Equally, they're incredibly proud of her for the bravery that she showed that cost her her life.
And of course, Kalakani's sentence is up for review, isn't it, Nigel? Because he escaped prison because of his mental health condition.
Well, he escaped murder.
Sorry, he escaped murder.
It was manslaughter.
And therefore,
yeah, but
is detained in a
but it
mental...
makes no sense because he was then convicted of attempted murder when he drove the van at those other people who passers by. So he got convicted of attempted murder for that, but not murder for killing those two teenagers.
And now held in a secure hospital.
Yeah, well,
But also
but it means he can't have a whole life sentence,
and also,
which he should have.
His case, Culvey, was about a man who'd slipped through the net with his medication services. He wasn't taking his drugs. He didn't get seen during lockdowns. He had paranoid schizophrenia. He just managed to escape all of the safeguards. I don't know how the parents sleep at night knowing how dangerous he was and how nobody was responsible for him.
You're right, Bev. I think we have to look closer. If there's another lesson to be learnt about this, every time we hear one of these stories, we seem to hear that somebody got through all the guardrails, all the elements that should have been in place to protect us, the public, from someone like that. And these are the kinds of things you really want. You know, we hear a lot about inquiries into how things go wrong. This is something that we really want to look at and say, how do we stop this happening again?
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Right, what's your other story then you've got, guys?
Smartphones.
Smartphones, let's talk about this.
Well, we've seen front page news, I think, today around the issue of young children being warned about sextation. They're being pulled into these...
Sexploitation.
Sexploitation, yes. And it's...
They're as young as 5.
It's shocking, Andrew. It's
Why have they got
shocking.
a phone?
Well, the problem is, part of it is the device, but it's also the content, the access, the platforms. There's a combination of things that are allowing children to be vulnerable and pulled into this terrible activity. So we do need to look at this carefully. I've been talking... I've spent a...
But would you ban them for under-16s, which is the proposal?
I think there's a restriction. It's not about banning. Firstly, I think schools have to be encouraged to say a zero mobile phone policy in the school environment. You know, I think that's the start. It's hard to say ban because I think parents have a responsibility outside of school to deal with this issue. But then it's the content and the access. And again, we have to look at the platform providers and say, if this type of activity is happening on your platform, you need to do more about it to shut it down. We had the Online Harms Bill that has been looked at this. But there are obviously ways and means through platforms like WhatsApp and direct messaging that are enabling people to take advantage from other countries and target our young people. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I think this is not something that's going to go away.
But you cannot, if you think how many billions of people around the world have mobile phones.
It's King Canute, isn't it?
And how many billions of them have Snapchat? So the teenage boy who took his own life, Dinal Dualwis, he just started sixth form college. He was going to study at Cambridge University, and he got duped into sending... He went to Whitgift School in South London, and he got duped into sending explicit images to somebody who was a Nigerian blackmailer in Nigeria. And he was so terrified by this, Nigel, that he was being asked to send £100, and he couldn't tell anybody, and instead he took his own life.
I mean, these are the kind of things that need to be stopped. In that particular case, I think that what is necessary there is the schools deal with that. You need to actually tell kids, watch out for people like that who might prey on you. On the online harms bill, I don't think it went far enough. What you've got to do is get content off that kids can access. Doesn't mean banning their phones. It just means sorting out the access. Most schools now don't allow children to keep their phones in lessons or anything like that. Not all, but most.
It's when they get home, Nigel.
Well, when they get, but I mean, you don't get to stop them, are you?
Yeah, I know, that's the problem.
Home in their bedroom.
Nigel makes a point. You know, way back when, we were taught about sex at school and the warnings and the challenge of sex. I think there needs to be education around the digital world in schools as part of the process about how to use... Because you have to use the digital world, you know, to do your homework and various other things now. It's impossible to ignore. But to use it safely, and let's get those warnings in place to reassure that if something like this happens...
I think we've got these children have to be told if they do get duped, you're not on your own.
Exactly.
You can tell a teacher.
And it's not their fault.
They might be able to sort it out.
Yes, that's right. And it's
not shaming. It's not the end of the world.
That's right.
Because that's what... And I was making the point earlier. You know, these are just children making these mistakes. We have Tory MPs sending nude bits, pictures of their bits to strangers on websites.
Adults get caught up in this too.
Exactly.
Or duped by fraud, online fraud. There's so much that's going on.
And
we have to educate people.
The reason, and I'm not a big fan of banning anything, but I think when it comes to children, I am absolutely on board with banning smartphones. Because why? We don't allow children so much access to things which are so bad for them, and we have to make it socially unacceptable. That's the issue. So that when you're sat around a table, in the same way that you wouldn't let your 13-year-old light up a cigarette over the dinner table.
Well, you hope not.
What you want is for parents to judge each other and say, why is your child on Snapchat for 3 hours over a meal time? We need social, reputational damage to come with this. Listen, my kids have smartphones. I'm not preaching, from the pulpit here. I make all the mistakes that everybody else does. It's very, very difficult. But even though we have restraints on their phones, they're always one step
It's a
ahead.
constant moving challenge as well, Beth, because there's this emerging, it's emerged world of gaming online. And that also brings people together.
You've got all this ahead of you with your...
I have 2 young children, which I'm not staying up at night worrying about this, but I am looking at it through the prism of being a parent with young children that will go through this generation. And I want to let them have the freedom and the opportunity that the digital world provides, but protect them at the same time from what's happening.
OK, thank you, gentlemen. Right, a lot more to come this morning, including, of course, that live visit. King Charles is going to be out and about. We're going to see him for the first time on an official visit since his cancer diagnosis. That and much more after your morning's news with Sophia.
Bev, thank you. It's 10:33. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. First, some breaking news. A man carrying a sword has been arrested after 5 people were stabbed in north-east London. The Met Police says officers were called just after 7 this morning after reports of a vehicle being driven into a house. Police say the attacker then stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said he was absolutely devastated by the attack and thanked the emergency services for running towards danger. The 36-year-old man was arrested at the scene and he is in custody. Police do not believe the attack is terror-related. Now, the government says it's trying to find missing asylum seekers after a report revealed that more than half of the illegal migrants set for deportation to Rwanda cannot be located by the Home Office. According to the figures, just over 2,100 identified for removal can be located out of the 5,700 asylum seekers. All had been told their asylum claims were inadmissible, but more than half have now stopped reporting to the Home Office. Nominations are now open in the SNP leadership contest, and senior figures are backing former Deputy First Minister John Swinney for the top job. It comes after Humza Yousaf stepped down and admitted he underestimated the level of upset he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll continue in his post until a replacement is found. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2549 and €1.1702. The price of gold is £8,173 and 3 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,173 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Still to come this morning, we are going to be taking the live footage of King Charles on his first out-and-about appearance since his cancer diagnosis.
And we'll update you, of course, on the people who've been injured, including 2 police officers. At least some have been taken to hospital following a sword attack in North East London early this morning as people were getting ready to go on that tube station, getting ready to go to work.
Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed each way between Duncanston and the A835 at the Tor roundabout after an accident causing delays. On the M65 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident at Junction 3, west of Blackburn, causing queues. West Midlands Metro services aren't running between Edgbaston and Centenary Square after a bus broke down on the tracks. Now, from Herefordshire into Monmouthshire, the A40 is closed southbound from Whitchurch to Monmouth after a lorry caught fire overnight. And in Wiltshire, the A303 is closed in both directions to the east of the Countess roundabout to Amesbury for an investigation. There are queues in both directions towards the closure and delays too on routes nearby as you divert. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
So J. Cole, who is a rapper, says that he felt terrible after releasing a song aimed at fellow rapper Kendrick Lamar and vowed to pull the track off streaming services. He said, "I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The past 2 days felt terrible," he told an audience at the Dreamville Festival in North Carolina. "I damn near had a relapse," he said.
There's a lot of young people, especially, that would look at that and they will take it not just as entertainment.
It doesn't happen in any other form of art that I can think of. This is not happening in country music, is it?
Well, it's the same problem in both cases, isn't it? Who's doing the regulating? And surely it's each case on its merits, isn't it? You don't just ban a genre.
Why is there such a lot of hatred for a man who usually would have trash-talked back to stand up and say, this doesn't sit well with me and I love this guy? If we look at, I think his name was Cody Fisher, the semi-professional footballer who died in a club because someone stabbed him. Yeah. Now, he was stabbed because he stepped on someone's trainers. This is the level of ego we're seeing from a lot of young men who don't have any output of being able to channel that energy, and a lot of it is stemming from cultures like football, hip-hop, these sorts of things. So I'm just saying it's refreshing to see a man who could have easily wiped the floor with his lyrics say, I don't have to,
That is interesting, isn't it? Because I took this interview the wrong direction. It's not about pointing out the areas of concern. Actually, this story is saying, look, music and art can be giving you an example of how to live a slightly better life.
That's free speech. Saying, sorry. I'm sorry, I choose not to fight back because I love you. It may look like a wimpy thing to do, but it's still free speech.
You know what? I love you, Paul. Sorry about earlier.
Very good morning. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It is 10:40 now. 5 people have been injured and taken to hospital following a sword attack in Hainault in north-west London.
Police say the attackers stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers. A 36-year-old man has been arrested at the scene and he is in custody. Mark White, as our Home Security Editor, joins us now to give us the latest news. Mark.
Well, we can now bring you images of this alleged attacker. We were waiting until we blurred that identity because the case is now active with this man in custody. But for those listening on the radio, I'll describe the images to you. It shows a man, a relatively young man, we're told he's 36, wearing a yellow top, carrying what is clearly a long-bladed weapon described by the Metropolitan Police as a sword. He is in and about houses in a residential area. According to the Metropolitan Police, this is an area near Thurlow Gardens, which is not far from Hainault Tube Station in East London. That shows that man with a sword, emergency services, police officers pushing forward, trying to deal with this individual. And we know that he was arrested at the scene just minutes after this video was taken, and according to the Metropolitan Police, 2 of those police officers involved in trying to detain the suspect were injured, along with 3 other members of the Public London Ambulance Service, confirming that they treated 5 people at the scene. All 5 people have been taken to hospital. They don't have any condition updates yet. The Metropolitan Police are waiting to establish exactly how badly injured those individuals are before giving us more detail. We've had clearly an indication of how serious this incident is in the form of comments that are now being made by senior politicians, the Home Secretary, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, and the London Mayor, all issuing statements this morning saying just how shocked they are by the incident, and also passing on their thanks and appreciation to those members of the emergency services, of course, particularly the police, who pushed forward. I think it's worth bringing you a statement, though, from the local MP, Wes Streeting, the Labour politician, who has also just issued an updated statement following that earlier statement in which he spoke about a critical incident being declared near Hainault Tube Station. He's just said, "I want to thank the emergency services for their response to the horrific incident in my constituency this morning, particularly the heroic Metropolitan Police officers who put themselves in harm's way to protect others. They are," he said, "the best of us." He goes on to say, "My prayers are with those who have been injured and their loved ones." And he goes on to say, "I know there will be widespread fear and alarm in the community, but the police have made an arrest and are not looking for any other suspects. I'm liaising closely with the police, the Mayor of London and the London Borough of Redbridge, and will keep local residents updated." It's causing, as you would imagine, a great deal of disturbance in the local area, because key areas of transport in and around Hainault have been badly disrupted. The main Hainault Tube Station has been closed. That service by the Central Line bus services have been cancelled and rerouted. Traffic through that main area has been halted as well. We're in a protracted stage now from the emergency services, having dealt with the injured, having arrested a key suspect. It's now about a slow time investigation to establish exactly what happened. But we understand, according to the police, that just before 7 a.m. this morning, they received an emergency call reporting that a car had collided with a house near Thurlow Gardens, which is near Hainault Tube Station, that a man, an attacker, has subsequently stabbed individuals. When they arrived, they said other members of the public had been stabbed, and indeed 2 police officers had been injured as well in trying to arrest this attacker.
Mark, any update on the extent of the injuries of the people who were hurt this morning?
Well, this is still relatively soon after this incident, so that will come out in the fullness of time. Of course, people are anxious. I mean, what the police will say is that those who have been caught up in this, their loved ones have been informed. So we await, as I say, any indication of how seriously injured people are. But there were, in some of the video that has been circulating showing this attacker, other images that showed one person on the ground with, I think, emergency services personnel trying to get at this individual who seemed to be motionless on the ground. Now, the ambulance service are not talking about fatalities. I mean, that would come from the police anyway, but they are saying that they treated 5 individuals and removed 5 people to hospital at this stage.
All right,
Okay,
that's
thank you,
Mark in bringing us the latest on that.
Just looking at your views coming in, Scott has said, I'm afraid even with metal detectors determined bad eggs will easily work out a way of carrying enamel blades. Patting down and bag searches will help against that. But do we want that in our schools with all the pitfalls that would entail? It seems we can't win. Right, key messages coming in this morning. gbnews.com/your say. And the London Ambulance have made a statement. They say we were called at 6:54 this morning to an incident near Hainault Underground Station. We sent multiple resources to the scene, working together with our emergency services partners. We treated 5 people and took all 5 to hospital. Our crews have now left the scene.
So we'll keep you up to date on all of this because we're now... What's the time? Time's coming to 10:46.
10:46.
You're with Britain's Newsroom and GB News.
Hi there, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Sunny in the east today, but cloudy and breezy in the west with showery outbreaks of rain. The rain persistent first thing across Northern Ireland into parts of southwest Scotland, West Wales and the southwest of England. Some heavy bursts, and as the morning continues, that rain doesn't move along very quickly, so it will stay damp across western areas, but the rain will tend to fragment into showers across parts of Northern Ireland, West Wales and Cornwall later on. Meanwhile, it stays sunny out towards the east, 1 or 2 showers in the far east, but otherwise, with the sunshine and lighter winds here, 18 or 19 Celsius, a very pleasant spring day. In the west, the rain continues through the evening, but it does eventually fizzle away and, well, it's going to become less windy as well. But further east, that's where the next band of rain moves in, and a lot of low cloud associated with it as well. So with a lot of cloud across the UK overnight, and a bit of a breeze, temperatures will stay at 11 or so in places. Now, we'll start off the day tomorrow with a lot of low cloud across eastern Scotland and eastern England, some mist and murk, fret and har, and outbreaks of rain also moving up the North Sea coast. To the west, any early rain disappears. Brighter skies emerge, some decent sunny spells for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, and feeling warmer compared with today, many places in the mid to high teens.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Well, police say the attacker in Hainault in north-east London, or Essex, stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. 5 people were taken to hospital. A 36-year-old man was arrested at the scene. He's in custody.
We are joined now by former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Good morning, Mike. When I spoke to you last week, you described yourself as an arrestosaurus, meaning that you like to see people arrested, and that makes you something of a dinosaur. Why should it be an old-fashioned concept that we can catch the baddies?
Well, I think on this occasion, I think that the police have done a very good job. You know, they're very, very brave to go towards a man with a knife and who's already wounded other people. So excellent work by the police here in detaining him. I suppose it does bring up the debate, though, about arming officers, because we saw the inspector in Australia shoot the knife man dead, whereas the officers here would have been armed with batons and perhaps just a taser. A good effort by the officers, very brave, but it does raise the questions about the dangers that police officers face day to day.
And Mike, that's the point, isn't it? We often take for granted, don't we, the outstanding work police officers do day in, day out, when they are literally putting their lives at risk to try to keep the rest of us safe.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And they're the people who run towards the danger while other people are running away. You know, police officers go on duty, they don't know what they're going to face day to day. And yes, we can criticise when things, burglars aren't arrested and thieves aren't arrested. But what you see today is the best of British policing, unarmed officers tackling a man who's obviously very, very dangerous for whatever reason.
We're seeing eyewitness reports now appearing online, Mike, and one man who's quoted on a website says that there were about 7 or 8 police cars entering the road. This is the residential street that we're looking at. After about 10 minutes, the guy was running towards the station and entered the road opposite the station. He tried to get into one of the houses. He couldn't, and then he was tasered. So we're having confirmation here from one eyewitness that he was tasered, and that's how they reprehended him. How many police officers have the full training for Taser, Mike? Do you know, and is it enough? I think we've lost Mike. OK, well, that's a shame. Yeah, we're just looking at this information that's coming out here, because, as I said earlier, there is footage of a paramedic edging towards a body on the ground with the attacker stood nearby with his very, very long sword. It's almost about 2 feet long, that sword.
And I don't know how much they're trained in self-defence and protect themselves, but their job is to make us better when we get sick or are injured.
And when you're watching the footage, you're crying out for somebody to just take out the guy and put those people in a place of safety. Yeah. So if this is true, as we're seeing now, this was one eyewitness said, I walked out of the office, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. I heard chaos on the other side of the road. I saw a group of people, 5 or 6 of them, trying to fight off a guy who had a sword in his hand. He goes on to say there were about 7 or 8 police cars entering the road, and after another 10 minutes, I saw the guy running towards the station and entered the road opposite the station. He tried to get into one of the houses, but he couldn't get into it, and that's when they tasered him. We saw police trying to catch him. He was trying to fight them off. In a matter of 15 minutes, all this happened. He was cutting people, and I heard that he stabbed 4 or 5 people.
And we don't know the extent of their injuries, but 5 people were taken to hospital by the London Ambulance Service, including 2 police officers. So this is a very serious situation that unfolded today, very early in the morning, as we were just getting ready to go to work, go to school, and you always think it's never going to happen around my area. Well,
Keir Starmer has tweeted. He said, awful news coming from Hainault. Our thoughts are with the victims, thankful for the first responders on the scene.
So we'll bring you all the latest on this, the breaking news on the sword stabbing in North East London after the headlines, because the time is now 10:54. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, good morning. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Sunny in the east today, but cloudy and breezy in the west with showery outbreaks of rain. The rain persistent first thing across Northern Ireland into parts of southwest Scotland, West Wales and the southwest of England. Some heavy bursts, and as the morning continues, that rain doesn't move along very quickly, so it will stay damp across western areas, but the rain will tend to fragment into showers across parts of Northern Ireland, West Wales and Cornwall later on. Meanwhile, it stays sunny out towards the east, 1 or 2 showers in the far east, but otherwise with the sunshine and lighter winds here, 18 or 19 Celsius, a very pleasant spring day. In the west, the rain continues through the evening, but it does eventually fizzle away and, well, it's going to become less windy as well. But further east, that's where the next band of rain moves in, and a lot of low cloud associated with it as well. So with a lot of cloud across the UK overnight and a bit of a breeze, temperatures will stay at 11 or so in places. Now, we'll start off the day tomorrow with a lot of low cloud across eastern Scotland and eastern England, some mist and murk, fret and har, and outbreaks of rain also moving up the North Sea coast. To the west, any early rain disappears. Brighter skies emerge, some decent sunny spells for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, and feeling warmer compared with today, many places in the mid to high teens.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Breaking news day this morning, there's been this stabbing incident in northwest London. Northeast London, sorry. We want to hear your thoughts this morning. gbnews.com/your say is the email address.
2 police officers are among the 5 who've been taken to hospital. The man who was carrying the sword has been arrested and was tasered by the police.
That's right. A 36-year-old man has been arrested at the scene. The police say the incident does not appear to be terror-related. London Mayor Sadiq Khan said that the police and emergency services ran towards danger. Susan Hall, wannabe London Mayor, tweeted, "This is deeply concerning and my thoughts are with those who have been injured. Thank you to the emergency services for everything you do to keep people safe." Let's get the very latest headlines now from Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. The government says it's trying to find... A man carrying a sword has been arrested after 5 people were stabbed in northeast London. The Met Police says officers were called just after 7 this morning after reports of a vehicle being driven into a house. Police say the attacker then stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. The 36-year-old man was arrested at the scene and he is in custody. Police do not believe the attack is terror-related. Labour leader Keir Starmer says the attack is awful news. Posting on X, he added that his thoughts are with the victims and he thanked the first responders at the scene. The government says it's trying to find missing asylum seekers after a report revealed that more than half of the illegal migrants set for deportation to Rwanda cannot be located by the Home Office. According to the figures, just over 2,100 identified for removal can be located out of the 5,700 asylum seekers. All had been told their asylum claims were inadmissible, but more than half have now stopped reporting to the Home Office. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins told GB News the Home Office will find them and flights will get off the ground.
We know that the Home Office has identified the first cohort of people that are to be removed to Rwanda now that we've passed the Act. It's important to understand there are different arrangements for different people. So, for example, some people are detained, others are allowed to live with friends or families, but they should be reporting into the Home Office regularly so that they keep that relationship up. Now, of course, the Home Office will be checking these people and will be finding these people. It is hard grind, but we have passed this piece of legislation this week. That is good news. We know that it will begin to have a deterrent effect, and we will and we will get the first flights off the ground within weeks.
Meanwhile, Ireland's Department of Justice is standing by claims that 80% of asylum seekers are coming into the country through Northern Ireland. It comes after refugee organisations question that figure released by the country's Minister for Justice. Ireland's Deputy Premier, Michael Martin, had said it was not based on evidence, statistics or data. However, Britain's Northern Ireland Minister said the UK's new Rwanda deterrent is clearly working. Nominations are now open in the SNP leadership contest, and senior figures are backing former Deputy First Minister John Swinney for the top job. It comes after Humza Yousaf stepped down and admitted he underestimated the level of upset he would cause by cutting political ties with the Greens. He'll continue in his post until a replacement is found. Meanwhile, former MSP for South Scotland region, Michelle Ballantyne, questioned John Swinney's authenticity.
Are we getting the true John Swinney? You know, was John Swinney merely playing whatever game was in front of him to keep his position in the party? And I think there's a few people would be uncertain now. And I think if he does pull through and become leader again, because this won't be the first time, remember, he was leader once before and it wasn't a great success. And he's been interim leader before. But if he does come, this maybe is a chance for him to say, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. And we might see the true John Swinney in terms of what he believes in.
In other news, hospital patients in England will have the right to request to be treated on single-sex wards under proposed NHS changes, with transgender people placed in rooms on their own. The measure is part of plans by the government to update the NHS constitution. The proposals stress the importance of biological sex for the first time when it comes to same-sex accommodation and intimate care. Currently, the rights are only available where possible and, in the case of same-sex wards, can be breached if there is a clinical urgency. Police investigating the discovery of a headless torso at Kersaldale have named the victim after more body parts were found. 67-year-old Stuart Everett's severed body parts were scattered in 4 different locations across Greater Manchester. It comes after 2 men appeared in court charged with his murder. And King Charles will return to official public duties later today for the first time since being diagnosed with cancer. He will visit a cancer treatment centre alongside the Queen to meet medical specialists and other patients. The monarch has been receiving care as an outpatient since early February, and it's understood the warmer weather would allow events to be staged outside and lessen the risk posed by other people. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
11:03, you're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Thank you very much for sticking with us this morning. It's been a breaking news morning. Wendy has said, thank goodness we have at least pretty strong gun laws. The carnage in our society that if we didn't have that, doesn't bear thinking about. This is, of course, on a morning in which 5 people have been injured and taken to hospital, 2 of them police officers, following a sword attack in Hainault.
And police say the attacker stabbed those people. He was a 36-year-old man has now been arrested at the scene. He's in custody. Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, is on top of all this and joins us now to give us the latest. Mark, can you tell us any more about the person in custody and perhaps, even more importantly, how are the 5 people who have been hospitalised?
Well, we still await an update on those 5 individuals. All that London Ambulance Service are saying at this stage is that they treated 5 people at the scene and all 5 have been taken to hospital. The Metropolitan Police say they're still awaiting updates on their condition. We've just had a statement issued by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He says this is a shocking incident. My thoughts are with those affected and their families. He goes on to say, I'd like to thank the emergency services for their ongoing response and pay tribute, he says, to the extraordinary bravery shown by police on the scene. Such violence, he concludes, has no place on our streets. Sadly, we know that it is commonplace on our streets. Stabbing is part of the everyday fabric of life, sadly, in the city of London and in other built-up areas around the country. This particular incident, we don't know at this stage what the motivation was, although the police say they are not working on the assumption that it is a terrorist-related incident, and they say there is no wider threat, that they are not looking for anyone else in connection with this. And the 36-year-old man on the video that we've been showing, those on GB News television, outside that residential area in Thurlow Gardens near Hainault Tube Station, carrying that long sword. That man is now, according to police, in custody. You heard in that statement there from Rishi Sunak and indeed other politicians, James Cleverly, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, the local MP Wes Streeting, and indeed the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, all thanking the emergency services in the round, but particularly those police officers who pushed forward to deal with this suspect. That is never without risk, and now we know 2 police officers have been injured. As I say, we await confirmation on just how seriously those officers have been injured. But of course, we understand that a taser may well have been deployed in dealing with this suspect, but it's by no means certain that the first officers on scene had access to a taser. And of course, taser is not 100% effective sometimes, just because of the connection that the barbs make when it fires, the clothing that someone might be wearing. It just doesn't connect properly and doesn't bring an individual down. Clearly, even if they did have a taser, 2 officers here injured because the suspect was carrying a huge sword, as evidenced on the video that we're seeing there. It looks like a samurai type sword, a long bladed weapon. You can do a lot of damage with that, and indeed some of the other images we've seen show one person lying, it seems, motionless on the ground as members of the emergency services were trying to push forward and deal with them at the same time as officers were trying to detain the suspect.
Very much. Mark, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if we've still got Mark there. Mark, are you still there? Mark, I was just saying, I'm just looking again, we've looked at these. There's a real problem, isn't there, on the streets of London in particular, with knife or sharp instrument offences. Last year, 12,786 in London alone, up from 11,000. That's more than 1,000 knife and sharp instrument offences every single month. That is appalling.
Yeah, there is a real problem it's become a culture of young people in particular who carry bladed weapons every day as part of their daily life. And you interview them, they say, many of them, that it's for protection. But of course, you carry a weapon, then get into trouble, that weapon might be used, another weapon might be used against you. There is also another issue that the government and successive politicians and ministers have been dealing with for years now, which is how to ban effectively these very large, sometimes ceremonial weapons that are easily purchased on the internet, that are purchased because people say they're collector's items. And samurai swords fall into that category. So do machetes and these zombie knives. The government has passed legislation. It is clamping down on the use and the sale of these weapons, but they're still out there in significant numbers. And as dangerous, clearly, as a knife from the kitchen is, when you're dealing with a large bladed weapon like a samurai sword, a zombie knife or a machete, it can do so much more damage.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. There are more eyewitness accounts emerging online. One spoke to the Press Association this morning and they said, I heard the words, he's got a massive knife or he's got a massive sword. And then he disappeared down an alley and he was out of sight. The police went into the alley and there seemed to be some sort of standoff where I heard this huge commotion, then a scream. From that commotion, at least one person was knifed. I think it might have been a woman because I heard a woman scream and then some sort of sobbing sounds. The eyewitness goes on. I then heard a voice say something like, she's been stabbed in the face or we need assistance, you know, calling for medical backup.
Terrifying.
We're joined now by security expert Will Geddes. Good morning, Will. It feels all too common that we are dealing with these... Oh, I'm so sorry, Will. We're going to come back to you, Will. Don't go anywhere because we've got this live footage. I'm so sorry, Will Geddes. We've got this live footage of King Charles arriving at his event this morning. Here he is. He's at a cancer centre.
Yeah, he's with Queen Camilla. If you're listening on the radio, I've got to say he's looking pretty healthy, pretty trim. He's smiling. What's she wearing?
He looks quite lively. Well, it's a leopard print dress, maybe, from where I am. So this is the King arriving at a cancer centre. As you say, Andrew, he looks very well. Let's cross to GBNews' royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who is there. Cameron isn't quite ready at the moment, so let's just enjoy these pictures.
Good morning, Bev.
Great. Oh, Cameron is there. Good morning, Cameron. We can hear you. What's happening?
Good morning. Yes, I'm stood behind the camera, Bev. His Majesty the King and Queen, as you can say, they have just arrived at the University College Hospital Macmillan Cancer Centre in central London. It's an incredibly symbolic visit, his first public engagement following the positive effect of his cancer treatments. The King is patron of the Macmillan Cancer Charity, and Buckingham Palace has, in the last few minutes, announced that he is the new Royal Patron of Cancer Research UK. That is a role he has taken over from his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, as well. Now, the King is keen to really highlight the importance of early cancer diagnosis and the positive effects that can have. He's also keen to be open about his own diagnosis, as we have seen since his diagnosis back in February, but also kind of keen to support other cancer patients, and that's exactly what we are going to see today. We've just seen the King and Queen entering the hospital. They are going to be meeting patients and staff, as well as some of the treatments which are trialled first here in central London and then are rolled out across the country. As I said, Cancer Research, heavily involved in this particular hospital, have invested heavily in a new kind of treatment and research for lung cancer and trying to identify why sometimes that treatment stops working. They'll also be looking at the effects of something called CAR T cell therapy, which is white blood cells reprogrammed to attack cancer cells. They're also going to be heading up to a chemotherapy ward and meeting patients undergoing chemotherapy too. But I'm also told that the King is keen to point out that sometimes, yeah, it is possible to continue work with cancer. We need to remember and be cautious here that the King still has cancer and he's still undergoing that cancer treatment, but it's not for everybody, and sometimes doctors may advise that you cannot work. Of course, we need to remember that the Princess of Wales is undergoing her own cancer treatment as well. But as you were saying, Bev and Andrew, when the King arrived, he looked incredibly happy. He was smiling and saying hello to some of the journalists here in the fixed points where I am, and the Queen was looking smiling and happy too. So hopefully this can be a really positive engagement and really an optimistic step as we look towards that busy summer of royal engagements.
OK. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you very much for bringing us those live pictures. I think we're going to try and...
Rather moving, too, that he's taking over from his mother as national patron of cancer research because of his own battle that he's having medically, as is the Princess of Wales.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to just play you the arrival once more, in case you missed it. This, of course, is the first official public engagement from King Charles and Queen Camilla since we heard about the King's cancer diagnosis. He's at the University College Hospital, Macmillan Cancer Centre in London. There he is.
Getting out the car, he's shaking the hand of the Lord Lieutenant, who is a ceremonial figure, always dressed in military outfit. They're sometimes female, of course. Queen Camilla looking behind him in some form of leopard print frock.
I think it is, from where we're sitting.
But they both look very happy.
It's a lovely day.
Yeah, they're relaxed.
Yep, he's chatting waving at the crowds. There's quite a few people there to welcome him and to wave him in. Everybody looking very happy to see the King and the Queen.
Lots of curtsying going on there.
Lovely. Now, of course, we've got this developing story this morning. We still don't know the condition of the 5 victims of this stabbing this morning in Hainault. We're going to talk now to Will Geddes again. We had to cut you off, Will, but I'm sure you understand why we had to cut you off. I'm sure you don't mind stepping aside for King Charles. Right, let's talk about this commotion this morning, which is being described. One of the eyewitnesses said it's a commotion. At least one person was knifed from what they were seeing. It was down an alleyway. We know there was some violent activity at the tube station and then more attacks here. This is this housing estate, which is a short walk, I believe, from the train station. It obviously is... Is it unusual, Will, for these sorts of attacks to happen at 7 o'clock in the morning? You feel like it might be a drunken event would happen with knife attacks. You think of it being more of an evening sort of crime. The police would have been caught very much off guard at 7 o'clock this morning.
Well, good morning, Bev. Good morning, Andrew. You know, to be honest, yes, the general perception is these kinds of attacks only often happen either late at night or in the very, very early hours or on weekends for that matter. But to have these attacks underway at 7 o'clock in the morning during a week, a working week, is not actually frighteningly that uncommon. It happens quite regularly, and that's not just attacks of this nature. It's robberies, it's assaults, it's rapes. They can happen at virtually any time of day. So the police know they have to be ready to respond to any kind of event at whatever time of day that might occur.
Mark White was talking earlier, well, I don't know if you heard it, about the number of machetes and those, what are those other knives called?
The samurai swords.
Samurai swords that are still on the market despite efforts by the government. Zombie knives. Government to crack down. And of course, they're lethal in the wrong hands. And I can't see why, Mark, they're even being sold anywhere. For what purpose do they serve?
Well, you make a very good point, Andrew. I mean, certainly zombie knives, you know, they've been now outlawed. You can't even acquire those, but you could potentially acquire a samurai sword, or you could acquire some sort of hunting knife for that matter. Although the laws, obviously, on carrying a knife that is over 3.5 inches long in the street is obviously illegal and a criminal offence. I think really it's not so much the supply of these, although that does need to be controlled. It has to come down to individuals, and there being far more harsh sentencing for anybody caught with them. I mean, as Mark said in his piece, he was talking about a vast majority of people claiming, and that is claiming, whether we believe them or not, are carrying knives for their own protection, their own defence. But the problem is that if one gets into some sort of event, and I've worked alongside knives and guns for most of my professional career, the problem is if you have that at your disposal, you are more than likely going to bring it to bear in a situation where you feel that you are going to be a threat physically or from another weapon for that matter.
We think that the perpetrator was tasered, Will, and so it raises a question really about how many police officers have the taser training, how common tasers are in terms of the use with the police force, and whether they should be more readily available.
Well, tasers are one of those sort of non-lethal weapons which can work very effectively, but again, as Mark was saying, unless it's deployed appropriately, and if the individual, for example, is either highly intoxicated or under the influence of substance abuse for whatever chemical that might be, or they're wearing clothes which are especially thick, the barbs of a taser don't necessarily make contact and don't actually give the full sort of effect of what one would need to debilitate and incapacitate, obviously, an aggressive assailant. One of the things which I think is very concerning is that the actual deployment of tasers by police officers here is not really as rigorous and robust as I would like to see, as we see in other countries. So, for example, I mean, I personally, and this is obviously in an innocent situation, I've actually been a victim of a taser against me to see the effects of it, to see actually what happens. And in many police forces around the world, they'll actually expect the police officers to actually experience what it feels like before they deploy it potentially against a criminal. So, again, it's about appropriate training, and that is the key thing. But there's a bigger fundamental problem here, and that is the control of knife crime in our city. The numbers are going up every single year, and we have to ask some very pointed questions at a somewhat evasive and elusive mayor of London who is not addressing this situation head on. And that is fundamentally the problem that we have here.
And I was just talking to Will, Mark White earlier, Will, the number of knife or sharp instrument offences, that's just the ones that they caught in the act last year, was just shy of 13,000 in London alone last year. That is an amazing figure and shocking, frankly.
Yeah, that's 1,000. That's over 1,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of the population that we have here, you think of the areas where knives are more likely to be presented across London, the neighbourhoods which have the highest levels of knife crimes. You know, there are some serious problems here that have to be addressed not only by the Met Police, but very much by the mayor. And we have to address this issue, certainly in terms of the sentencing, as I mentioned. You know, there have to be very extreme penalties for people who are found to be concealing a weapon and carrying it for whatever purpose they may want a reason.
OK, thank you, Will. Will Geddes there, security expert. Thank you for hanging on as well. We're going to be bringing you the latest on this story. If you're just joining us, 5 people were taken to hospital this morning following a sword attack in East London. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The
People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christies tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
And I did want to give you a platform, but I also want to give you an opportunity to apologise to anyone that you might hurt, and also give a message now to people who might want to copy some of the things that you've done, because people have copied it. So is there anything you'd like to say about that?
So the first thing you addressed, yeah, I do want to say sorry, because I did say sorry in the BBC interview, and that's the only thing they put out as a clip. So I don't know why they tried to do that, but I'll say it again on GB News here. I apologise to all the victims in the past that I've may have caused distress to, may have harassed, may have mentally tormented in any type of way. I apologise to them because I didn't mean to do that, and I was just having fun at the moment, but I didn't realise that it would have negative repercussions and negative effects on their psychological, way of thinking. So I apologise for that. And also, the one thing I have to say to the young people is social media isn't real. What I've portrayed to the guys on the internet is that I'm this cool, I don't give a toss about anything. But me as a person, I really do care. And for people I don't really read comments on the internet, because if I was to do that, I would probably go into a depressive state. All I can say to you guys is believe in yourself, and there's bigger things you can do out there than just being an absolute menace on the internet or being antisocial. If you have ambitions, I like to read, I like music. I want to go deeper into my passion so I understand me as a person and not what other people think I am.
You are an articulate young man. You are obviously intelligent as well when you talk like this. And I really hope, for your sake and for the sake of a lot of people who did take a negative influence from what you did initially, that you really don't go back down that route.
I have a child as well, and I have to be there, not just for me, but for my child, for my child's mother, for my mother. I have to be there for a lot of people. It's not just me. So I need to put in the work.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning, 11:24. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, before the break, we saw the King arriving at his first official royal duty since his cancer diagnosis. Here we have the pictures of him.
Just film it.
looking very well there.
Well.
He does look well with the back of his head, but when he turns around in a minute, you will see that he does look very well. We've got in the studio with us GB News' senior political editor Nigel Nelson and former advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley as well. Nice to see these pictures of the King up and about, Charlie.
Definitely. And on the back of the news that he was resuming duties, he's looking well. He's there, as you can see, shaking hands with all the welcoming party there. And it's good to see him back out and about. And I think it's something that he would be keen to do, following in the footsteps of his late mother, the Queen. You know, that sense of duty, obviously, throughout the whole royal family. But I think King Charles in particular would have been super keen to get back to these duties as quick as possible. And here he is, looking in fine form.
And it's quite pointed, isn't it, Nigel, that he's at a cancer centre?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
When you think what's happening to him and also to the Princess of Wales.
Yes, and he's certainly making a point by going there. I mean, the one good bit that's come out both from the King and from Kate is that so many people now are getting cancer checks because of it. And so he's determined to try and keep building on that good work, hence why he's at a cancer centre today.
Yeah.
We've also got the Duchess of Edinburgh has been visiting Ukraine. This is Sophie, of course.
That's the first royal to go there since the war started.
Wife
Pretty significant.
Edward.
Yeah.
I often make the mistake.
Yeah, she is. That's Edward's wife.
That would be a terrible mistake to make.
No, that's Fergie, ex-wife. Don't want her.
And I think Sophie is actually a very underrated member of the royal family. I like a lot of things about her, Charlie.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the whole focus previously has been on, you know, William and Harry, obviously, as the grandsons of the Queen and obviously the kids of King Charles. But since Harry has obviously, you know, moved out and up sticks and decided to leave, obviously duties have had to be greater distributed. There's had to be a greater distribution of roles. And Sophie has someone that's obviously been on more of the sidelines, but is obviously, you know, still quite youthful. She's got a bit of a character, not unlike Princess Anne, I think, actually.
Yeah,
from time to time.
there are similarities.
And this is what a royal should be doing.
Yes.
That we send politicians over to Ukraine and they talk about arms shipments and EU succession and things like that. Sophie went over there specifically to talk to survivors of sexual violence through the war. She met people who've been made homeless by the war. And that's the kind of thing, that kind of human thing is what royals actually should be doing.
Yeah. And she doesn't crave the publicity, actually, I think, with Sophie. I think she sort of, you know, just being in the background for a while.
Which royal are you suggesting does crave publicity?
Harry,
former royal,
absolutely.
I think he thinks he's still a royal because he's still Prince Harry.
And that's the difference, you know. The sort of, you know, and there he is. I think that might.
Well, he's going to be here next week.
Well,
will you be there with your Union flag, waving it as he walks into St Paul's Cathedral for the 10th anniversary service of, what's his charity called? Invictus Games.
Will I be there?
Yeah, will you be there, Charlie? Patriotic?
The invitation might be still in the post.
Right.
But depends if it's got the right stamp on or not.
Yeah, quite, almost.
Come to.
I don't think there'll be a single royal will set foot in the cathedral with him. I think he'll be on his own.
I mean, I think on a situation like that, it is the Invictus Games, it is the 10th anniversary.
Yeah, and they're terrific.
It's a Thanksgiving service. So we should welcome Harry, but not a hero's welcome.
Yes.
And it is such a shame, isn't it? Because the Invictus Games is blooming brilliant.
Yes,
What that ceremony, even the opening ceremony puts the goosebumps up, doesn't it? It's a brilliant event. And it is a shame that there are no royals at that occasion, because obviously when he inaugurated this event 10 years ago, the whole point was that it would be embraced by, I imagine, lots of the royal family. It's a shame, Charlie, that hasn't happened.
I think that's right, and of course the royal family have got a history with the military, and it's about the military and the armed forces sort of taking taking part in these games. So the fact that there won't be that connection there is you're right. It's upsetting, but you know that's the current state of affairs. We are where we are.
Right. Shall we talk about the fact that apparently calling a female colleague pretty at work is sex discrimination, a tribunal has ruled. What's this about, Nigel?
What it is that Emma Nunn, who is an accounts manager in Leicester, getting £60,000 a year, her boss sent her a text and said that would she turn up to a meeting because the customer likes pretty women.
Ooh.
She said, I'm not just coming because I'm a pretty face. He said, oh, calm down. She took him to an industrial tribunal who found in her favour, and quite rightly.
Quite rightly so. This is about context, though, isn't it, Charlie? Because you could say you know, we have Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom, very good at her job and also very pretty. And I feel OK saying that. But maybe you have to caveat it when it comes to women, that we're not just pretty.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, and you know, well done to Emma Nunn, because she was absolutely right to take her employed to tribunal. I think it's actually perfectly OK. I think, if to compliment somebody on their hair, if they're looking good, if they won't just say, oh, you know, lovely hair today, I love your dress, Beth. I think, you know, you look stunning, as do you, Andrew, always. But what is...
I'm too long in the tooth, my dear.
But what isn't OK is to say, oh, because you look pretty, or because I think a particular opinion, I want to bring you into this meeting to either further your business or further income, and particularly when, if it's said to a woman, in this particular case it was, but you wouldn't say it to a man necessarily. So it is the sexual discrimination that took place in the workplace in this occasion.
And
but I think complimenting people is
and
perfectly
it's because, I think the tribunal found, but it's because you wouldn't say that about a man.
No.
Like, Nigel, have you ever been called into a meeting? We need Nigel there because he's a bit of eye candy for the ladies.
No, I could actually say absolutely not.
No. It's only a matter of time, Nigel. It's only a matter of time.
Also, I think that the days have gone where people use things like... I mean, Andrew and I remember from our younger reporter days when women would use their sexuality to get interviews.
Yes.
I remember a colleague of both of ours, Baz Bambigboy, who was he was a black reporter. We were both trying to get an interview with Elizabeth Taylor. I turned up and was refused. He turned up dressed as the archetypal Hollywood bellboy with a bunch of flowers.
He did.
He got the interview.
Brilliant.
That was using his blackness to get the interview.
And very clever it was.
And very clever it was, too.
There'd probably be an outcry if somebody tried that now, even though it was very clever.
Yeah, well, of course it would be.
Yeah.
It would probably be cultural appropriation, wouldn't it, now?
Absolutely. I mean, now you couldn't do it. That's how times have changed.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever called you a pretty boy?
Many a time.
No, I've never been kissed.
Just one. Did Michael Gove, when you worked with him, did anybody ever call your boss Michael Gove pretty boy, or is that an obvious answer to that?
I don't think only he can answer that.
He has many strengths, but perhaps not that
terribly easy
particular
on the eye. But then you could say that's very sexist of us to say that, because we wouldn't talk about a woman like that, would we?
Might.
We might. Right, I think we better wrap this up before we get into all sorts of trouble, don't you? Still to come, we're going to have the latest from that breaking news story this morning, this horrific attack in East London where 5 people have been taken to hospital following a sword attack. We will have some live pictures from the scene where the police, of course, are still evidence gathering. That and much more after your morning's news with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, thank you. It's 11:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. A man carrying a sword has been arrested after 5 people were stabbed in North East London. The Met Police says officers were called just after 7 this morning after reports of a vehicle being driven into a house. Police say the attacker then stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. The 36-year-old man was arrested at the scene and he is in custody. Police do not believe the attack is terror-related. Labour leader Keir Starmer says the attack is awful news. Posting on X, he added that his thoughts are with the victims and he thanked first aid responders at the scene. King Charles has returned to official public duties today for the first time since being diagnosed with cancer. He's visiting a cancer treatment centre alongside the Queen to meet medical specialists and other patients. The monarch has been receiving care as an outpatient since early February, and it's understood the warmer weather would allow events to be staged outside and lessen the risk posed by other people. The government has denied claims it's trying to find missing asylum seekers after a report suggested that more than half of the illegal migrants set for deportation to Rwanda could not be located by the Home Office. According to the figures, just over 2,100 identified for removal are in touch with authorities out of the 5,700 asylum seekers. All had been told their asylum claims were inadmissible, but more than half have now stopped reporting to the Home Office. Health Secretary Victoria Atkins told GB News earlier the Home Office will find them and flights will get off the ground. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2549 and €1.1697. The price of gold is £1,847 and 5 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,180 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
It's good.
Very good morning. Thank you for joining us, Andrew Pierce. You're on the telly. You're on the telly.
We always do that.
Right. Afternoon Britain is going to be with you at 12 o'clock. Emily and Tom are here. What's coming up today, guys?
We do.
Just one was enough.
Ditched my husband. Yeah, not husband to be. Husband to be. Not yet. Not yet. There's still time.
Yeah, the
There's still time, Andrew.
Right.
There's still time. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yes, we've been watching with horror the footage that you've been showing of yet another stab attack, a stabbing spree on the streets of London. We're going to ask, is it time to arm the police?
Good question.
And we're going to be going head-to-head with two former police officers who have strong opinions on this matter.
We'll also have Catherine Forster live on the scene for us, as we know there's still a heavy police presence in the area, and we want to get more details on who this person was who carried out this attack.
And also, we still don't know how seriously injured the 5 people are in hospital.
Yeah.
We include 2 police officers doing their job.
Yeah, I need to go home. There's so much more to learn.
These are the live pictures this morning from Hainault. I don't know this area well. From piecing it together...
It's part of the London Borough Redbridge, and it's sort of a suburb of Ilford, really, which is why the local MP is the Shadow Health Secretary, West Streeting.
And I think the tube station, from the pictures we saw earlier, was beneath the bridge. It could be that we're looking there towards the tube station, and perhaps the housing estate where this perpetrator was going from door to door is beyond that. A little further.
But what we do know is a man has been arrested.
Sure.
Yeah. One single man has been arrested. Yes,
That's not
what
all
else?
that we're talking about. Of course, it's only been a day since the First Minister of Scotland has resigned, and now all eyes are turning to Wales.
Yes,
because the
very good
First
point.
Minister of Wales is in a lot of hot water over a donation of £200,000 that was given to him by a man who has been convicted twice for illegal dumping of toxic materials. Now, he runs a company that was given £400,000 by the Welsh Investment Bank, which was run, well, the person who had responsibility for it was none other than Vaughan Gething, the First Minister of Scotland. So a few years ago, his bank gives 400 grand of taxpayers' money to this company. Then Vaughan Gething is running to be First Minister, and he gets 200 grand from this company.
Lots of allegations of crookery
criminal.
there.
The point is, Tom, the Labour group that elected him leader knew all this.
Yeah. Yes.
And yet they still chose him as leader.
Only in the last few days have we learnt about the £400,000 of taxpayers' money going to this person. But we also do know that the convicted criminal who gave the £200,000 donation is seeking for more projects to be approved by the First Minister of Wales. So this all ties together.
I think he's in big trouble.
He's been in the job 6 weeks.
And I think he could be out.
He's been in the job 6 weeks, and this could be something that is of equivalent scale to the self-inflicted crisis that the First Minister of Scotland found himself in. It is extraordinary. In
Could
Wales,
it be
in
the
Scotland,
second
in
First
England?
Minister to go?
Would it be extraordinary?
Second First Minister go in quick succession. But yes, we're going to be speaking to a Welsh journalist who has a lot of strong thoughts on this one. He's been following his rise and potential fall very closely indeed. Also, could King Charles reunite with Prince Harry? That is the question on everyone's lips. I would love to see it. I would love to see it. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
It would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful. He's here.
No, I want a flying
King Charles
visit.
is
Go
back in his public duties. So there you go. They should reunite.
Thank you very much.
Emily and Tom here from midday. We're going to bring you more this morning on the breaking news of the multiple stabbings in London. A man has been arrested. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
In the studio, the chairman of the Royal Society of St George, that's Nick Dutt. Congratulations on St George's Day.
Thank you very much, and happy St George's Day to you and all the listeners, all the viewers.
What does it mean to you, Nick? What are you going to do today, for instance?
I'm attending an event in London for a society that celebrates St George's Day. But as a society, over the last few days, we've done a number of things. So a number of the branches around the country have held events to celebrate St George's Day.
Dare I say that's sort of passed under the radar, probably, for most people, and they sound like exactly the sort of things we ought to be doing as a country today. Eamon's campaigning for us to have a bank holiday like the Irish do. Eamon would come in on the 17th of March, head to toe, dressed in green, and doesn't understand why we English are so... I think it's self-deprecation, but he thinks it's just sort of, snobbery or... reticence to...
it's very hard to explain to somebody who's Irish, who celebrates their national day, why people in England don't have the same enthusiasm. That's the thing.
And I struggle with that. I absolutely agree. I think we should celebrate it. We should celebrate what unites us rather than what divides us.
Definitely, yeah.
And I agree. I think, and thanks to your channel, the Cenotaph event was broadcast, and we've this year seem to have a much bigger awareness of St George's Day. But over the last decade or so, there have been certain headwinds that certainly patriotism has been conflated with nationalism. It's made worse now as well because of the underlying trends, shall we say, in universities and schools to push a narrative that undermines all our history, what we've ever done. Now, yes, there are some bad things, but we've done good things. There's some great people.
I'm Patrick Christies. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christies tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. It's 11:41. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. It's been a morning of breaking news. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has now paid tribute to the bravery of emergency services who responded to a sword attack this morning in East London.
5 people have been injured, including 2 police officers, and they're in hospital after the incident in Hainault in north-east London.
Police say the attacker stabbed members of the public and 2 police officers with a sword. A 36-year-old man has been arrested at the scene, and he is in custody.
So let's talk now again to our GB News Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, over to you. What is the latest now? How can you update us, Mark? Good morning again.
Good morning. Well, the very latest is that the Metropolitan Police will be making a statement within the next 20 minutes in Hainault. Chief Superintendent Stuart Bell, who is the area commander, will be making a statement live to camera, updating us on what the latest situation is and hopefully giving us an update on how seriously injured those 5 people who we know were treated at the scene by London Ambulance Service paramedics and then taken to hospital are, their current condition updates. I mean, it may still be too early, really, for much of an update on their condition, but certainly, hopefully, we'll get more of a picture from Chief Superintendent Bell. There will, of course, also, I'm sure, be messages of reassurance to the local community that they are not looking for anyone else in connection with this horrific incident that unfolded just before 7 a.m. this morning. Police received a 999 call reporting that a vehicle had smashed in to a local property in the area around Thurlow Gardens, which is not far from Hainault Tube Station. There were reports as well of people stabbed at the scene. Then when police arrived on the scene, they said the suspect went on to stab other members of the public, and also that 2 police officers were injured in trying to arrest this man. There's more in the way of kind of video, dramatic video, that has been coming out, shot by local residents at the scene. There's one, as well as, of course, the dramatic video that we've been bringing you, showing you of that suspect crouching down with that samurai sword, it looked like. It's certainly a long-bladed weapon that man was carrying. There's other images of him appearing to be around an area of garages and lockups, which is within this housing estate area around Thurlow Gardens. On the roof of some of those garages, police looking for him, they spot him, they're shouting at the man to come down, he's not obeying their instructions, and then those officers are effectively screaming at residents in the area to lock their doors because the man was going into gardens and apparently trying to get into residents' houses. So the police screaming at those residents to lock their doors and stay safe inside as they continued to try to apprehend this individual, which they did do. He is in custody, but as I say, not before 2 police officers were attacked and injured.
OK, thank you very much, Mark. And also, we just want to say a word to the police.
Amazing job, they
doing the most remarkable job this morning. There's more footage now being uploaded onto social media from people who were watching. As we say, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. People are in their kitchen, in their dressing house, putting the kettle on. And this guy's on the roof of garages behind these houses, wielding this enormous sword with the police trying to encircle him with nothing.
And we shouldn't forget the paramedics too, because there's footage too of the paramedic who's trying to tend to somebody who's lying on the ground. But the man with the samurai sword, the big blade, is preventing him doing his job. Extraordinary bravery by all of them.
Absolutely. We're going to bring you the latest on this in the next 15 minutes. We're with you. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Spring is here, at least for some parts of the UK. In the west, it's another fairly grey, breezy and wet day, thanks to this little area of low pressure. Doesn't look much, but these weather fronts providing outbreaks of rain. The isobars close together as well, so it's quite gusty and blustery, particularly soggy for South Wales, southwest England, a bit rain at times for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Whereas for many central and eastern parts, it's a cracking day, if you like, blue skies. Plenty of those across northeast England, the Midlands, just clouding over a little across East Anglia and the southeast, but pretty warm in that sunshine. Temperatures 18, 19 Celsius, cooler on some North Sea coasts and obviously much cooler with the cloud and the rain further west. That will continue through this evening through parts of Wales, into the West Midlands, into southwest Scotland. Overnight we'll see a few heavy showers just getting into Kent and East Anglia, perhaps pushing up towards Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire by the end of the night. In the east, pretty mild night, double digits. In fact, many areas not dipping below about 7 or 8 Celsius. On to Wednesday, and a very different day, particularly across northeast England. Much more cloud and rain here, and that cloud and rain working into eastern Scotland as well. A much brighter day, though, for Wales and southwest England, with some decent spells of sunshine, some fine weather, especially on the west coast of Scotland, and then later on, the potential for some thunderstorms to come up from the south. Again, where it's sunny, really quite warm tomorrow, but a much cooler day across the northeast.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel. And from Thursday,
the people decide.
As the country heads to the polls in a rush of elections,
we'll take you through the night as the first results come in. And we'll pick up at breakfast
with the very best guests and analysis.
And on the weekend, the results won't stop, and neither will we.
We'll explore what it all means for you as we look ahead to the general election.
Continuing coverage live from Thursday at midnight on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
So Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has paid tribute to the bravery of emergency services who responded to a sword attack in East London this morning.
In a post on Twitter, he added that such violence has absolutely no place on our streets. Well, that's an understatement, isn't it?
That's right. Well, 5 people, as we've been telling you, have been injured this morning and taken to hospital after the incident at Hainault. A 36-year-old man has been arrested at the scene and he is in custody.
Well, let's talk to anti-knife campaigner Ken Hines, who is no stranger to this programme. Ken, here we go again. Deja vu. We've had this conversation with you before. I feel we'll have it yet again. How do we get these lethal knives and blades out of people's hands?
As a community respondent, I would like to commend the bravery of those officers and the emergency staff that attended the scene as I stopped preventing things from escalating. Now, to get to the point about how do we stop this, you know, I keep saying when people have that redness or have rage, there's no telling what they will do. But nonetheless, what we can do as a community is to be, if we're in that space, is to do what the police are doing. Some of us, this is what we're trained for as a street father engagement, part of the street father engagement team. We're the sort of people that will actually run towards the trouble and do our best to de-escalate it without putting ourselves into danger in that regard.
I was going to say, Ken, the sort of knife crimes that we think of when we think of knife crimes, we think of gangs, we think of muggings and stabbings, we think of nighttime crime. From what we can see, this looks like, obviously it was 7 o'clock in the morning, it's a big sword, and it doesn't look like it's one of those single acts of rage. This is a man who's gone from house to tube station, relatively calm in some of the footage. He appears to be. How is the police? How do you handle a situation like this? You've got experience with the police, and how did the mindset of the officers who don't have a weapon but are trying to encircle this man?
Well, the most important thing you can do is have that dialogue, create a dialogue with the perpetrator, to tell him, to assure him that no one's been hurt, and you know it's in his best interest not to just to put the weapon down and to give himself up, to acknowledge that we can't understand what pain he may be going through, but the important thing is that we can't allow him to go anywhere with that weapon. He needs to put it down. We need to have that conversation and just to give him that reassurance that we're there. We're not there to harm him, but we're there to safeguard everyone in that space. There's, particularly when you're unarmed, there's very little you can do, but to actually put yourself into harm's way, but without giving you some space in case that he does turn on you, that you've got an exit point to create distance between you and the person with that sword.
Ken, we hear sometimes about boys that are carrying knives, particularly young boys.
It's always boys, isn't it?
Almost always, because they themselves feel so terrified on the street that it's their only solution. How do we fix that problem?
The way that you fix that issue is, again, we have got to change that energy in that negative space. As I said, the Street Father engagement team, we go into these hotspot areas, in Brixton, in Enfield, Walthamstow, wherever it may be. We are in there as a present, as a reassurance present. First of all, to let the local people know that we're there, so if anything disturbance do happen, that we've got their backs, that we're safeguarding them. Also, to let the perpetrator know that we will not allow them to go on the streets with their weapon. We will give them the option to either give it up to us or to give it up to the police. But it's not an option for them to continue to be on our street with their emotion, with their rage.
Thank you, Ken. I'm so sorry to cut you off. We have to cut you off for King Charles. Here he is, leaving his event this morning. He's been visiting a cancer centre In London, these are the live pictures. We can see Queen Camilla there, nodding in the sunshine, holding a little bouquet of flowers, if you're listening on the radio.
And they're talking to children. I wonder if these children are being treated at the cancer centre.
I would think they probably are, yeah.
Makes it all the more poignant.
It does make it all the more poignant. These are children outside the cancer centre in London, shaking hands.
Sweet little bouquets of flowers they'd given the king and his wife too. And the sun is shining. And, of course, this is his first official engagement since the diagnosis of cancer and the treatment he started. And I'd say he's looking pretty good.
He does look well. He does look well, yep. It's just nice to see the King up and about this morning. And there's Queen Camilla also carrying small bouquets of flowers. You can hear the clicking of the photographers in the background.
He's waving, he's smiling. Look, he's waving to the photographers. Doesn't always do that, does he?
He does look very well.
He does. Well, I think he's glad to be out on parade because the whole point about monarchy, visibility. Queen always said, they have to see me. Hence the bright hats, the bright outfits, the bright frocks. Well, Camilla didn't do bad. That was quite a nice bright frock, wasn't it? What would you call that? What would you call? I'm not very good at fashion
I couldn't really see. It looks, it's almost leopard print, but it's like a black and a dark sort of beige colour. If you're listening on the radio, they're shaking hands now with members of the crowd. She's receiving a bouquet of red roses.
Oh, lovely.
There with the security.
She's doing a little walkabout. Looking good, and the sun is shining. Yep, she's going in the car now. So that's the official limo. And they'll presumably heading back to Clarence House, and hopefully we're going to see more of him.
Well, I very much hope so.
Well, we've seen plenty of her.
And also, it's worth mentioning, we really would love to see Kate, Princess of Wales, at some point as well. But obviously, she's been given the space and the time that she needs to receive the treatment as a young mum, first and foremost.
Yeah. And off they go, waving. And of course, it's the limo, so you can see him and her very, very clearly. That's the Lord Lieutenant waving them off. That'll be Sir or Lord somebody or other. They normally are.
Nice to end
on a positive
Bleak show on a positive note. Emily and Tom are next. We'll see you tomorrow.
You really could be our next big winner with an incredible £20,000 in tax-free cash to play with this summer. What would you spend that on? Well, whilst you're thinking about it, listen to some of our previous winners getting that winning phone call from us.
You're the winner of the Great British Giveaway.
I'm slipping neck. Oh, dear.
Oh, my God, are you joking?